when I called them out on it, the realtor said, well, they have good credit. Because I said, I think the document is forged. She said, well, they have good credit.
According to what?
I said, what do you mean they have good credit?
The forged document.
The document is forged. You have no idea what kind of credit these people have. And giving the 4 months up front, you know what would happen. You know what would happen there. To those of you that don't, you would get that 10 grand up front and never see another nickel. All right, here we go. Episode 106. Hello. Welcome to KT Confidential, the real estate podcast. We are your hosts. I am
your radio voice is getting better and better every episode. Yeah.
I'm Ariel Cremendi. He's Adrian Trott. Episode 106. Hello, my friend.
Hey, how's it going? Hey, listen, before we get started, if you are a repeat listener, sorry, am I loud? If you are a repeat listener, I want you to go and like this video or like this audio track, wherever you're watching or listening. That's all. Now you can continue.
On your camera must have some smudges or something on it.
I'll wipe it while you talk.
All right. So I think we'll just get right into the podcast topic, which revolves around a story, and I'll give you the quick synopsis of the story. We have a beautiful brand new townhome in Milton available for lease. We underpriced it in order to get it leased quickly. We had multiple interest right away, got multiple offers right away. But one offer came in before the other. And the first offer actually
that is typically how it happens.
Yeah, smart ass. Yeah, they didn't come in at precisely the exact same time. But no, this was like a half a day. Okay, so 6-7 hours, one offer came in, and then 6-7 hours later, the other offer came in. So I had lots of time to review the first offer, and it looked great. It was a good price, good closing date. They were offering some additional money up front in order to make their offer look better.
Sounds ideal.
And great credit, amazing credit, good jobs, stable jobs. The paperwork was actually not too bad in terms of the offer itself. The realtor did a pretty good job in constructing the offer. But once I started looking into this offer a little bit, the first thing that actually struck me, to be honest with you, was that they did offer up an additional 2 months of rent. So typically we only ask for first and last month rent as the deposit, and they willingly offered up 4 months.
Let's talk about when would people normally do that? Because
it's not common. Now, I do understand that in a situation where you're competing against other offers, at this point they weren't competing yet.
Right. This is just their initial.
This is their initial offer, no other offers on the table, and they came forward offering 4 months rent right up front. So, we were underpriced, definitely underpriced by at least I want to say $55 a month. We ended up getting $105 more per month. So technically, I guess you could say we were $100 below its market value in order to attract a lot of attention and get it done quickly because it was vacant. And that's what the sellers wanted. They said, get it leased quickly. Okay, so this automatically sets off a question in my head. Why are they offering the 4 months? Now, to your question or to your point, people would typically do that when they have poor credit or not ideal credit, we'll say, right? There's a blip in their credit somewhere. And sometimes that can be explained. Sometimes they went through some hardships, COVID. You're probably going to get a bunch of tenants next year that say, oh, yeah, my T4 from last year is only $20,000, but I usually make 50, right? So maybe there's a blip in, their report in some way, shape, or form. They couldn't make a payment one month or whatever, or people get ill. Right, we've seen that before. That
or separations, divorces. There's a lot of reasons that somebody could run into financial hardship, for sure.
Correct. So that's one of the reasons. That's usually the primary reason. Something revolving around credit or job, right? And to provide the landlord with some further stability, because a landlord would look at it and say, all right, well, they're giving me 10 grand up front. That's pretty solid. And even sometimes you can have somebody that has a good credit score, but their utilization on credit is quite high, meaning, they have a $10,000 balance on their Visa and they owe $9,500 on the Visa. Things like that. So just to show financial stability, somebody might do that. But that's usually where it stems from. So I look at the 4 months up front, and now I look at their credit report. I look at their job letters and their pay stubs, and everything looks pretty good. So I'm like, okay, I'll have to get some answers from their realtor about that. Anyways, so I called her and I said, what, I got all the paperwork here. I'm just starting to go through it. But right away, I have a question. Why are you giving us 4 months up front? And she answered right away, because they lost out on a couple other properties and they wanted to make their offer more attractive so that they don't compete and lose it. Okay, not a bad explanation. So again, it was 6 or 7 hours before the second offer came in. So it gave me a few hours to do my due diligence. First thing I'm doing is looking at all of the documents and what do they look like? What do they say? Does the rental application and these documents, do they all line up? Like, is there any variances that would set off any red flags? The first thing I noticed is that the job letter, if you're working for a company for a long time and making a good salary and they have a number of employees, usually there is a professional letterhead. Usually there's some sort of a manager, a human resources manager, a controller. Sometimes in smaller companies, it can be the president or whatever. And typically there's more or less a standard type of letter that they use to provide letters of employment.
Yeah, some companies are very consistent with it. They typically have a normal format that you would follow. What raised a concern with that one? Because that can vary very, very much from one company to another.
The way the letterhead was put together seemed a little bit off. It almost seemed like the letter itself was printed and then the logo of the company was potentially pasted onto that printout and then photocopied and then scanned and photocopied and then emailed. So you had almost... You remember back in the day when you would get a fax and it was like an offer that had been faxed 3 or 4 times between offices, and by the time the end user gets it, it's like, how do I even know if this is a legit copy?
Yes.
That's kind of what went through my head, because the depth of, the depth of color, the depth of the grayscale within all of the font was significantly darker than the logo.
Right.
So typically, if somebody's printing a job letter, it's all going to be more or less within that same scale and same degree of whatever you want to call it. Colorful.
Yeah. Well, nowadays I find I'm surprised that more people aren't just simply providing digital copies. Most companies now, I think, are switching to that format. Like, why are we printing basic letters on paper? Doesn't make sense. Send me a PDF. I think they're more reliable. And then you get digital signatures that are date and time stamped. You know, it's legit. They're authenticated through, various programs as having security. So you know it's a real document.
So not a big red flag yet, because I have seen that before and it has been legit. Smaller companies, somebody doesn't know how to do it or run a business.
I've seen some pretty funny job letters. Just
I've even seen handwritten ones,
Yeah.
Then I Googled the company and I started doing my research on the company, and it turns out that the owner, whose name was on that job letter, was on LinkedIn. So I hopped on LinkedIn and I'm looking at it going, okay, this doesn't sound like, a big operation of any kind. It's a small operation for sure. And I dug in a bit further. There were a number of reviews online for this company of past employees. There's a website, I don't know what it's called, but where employees can go and kind of rank or rate or review their employer.
Right.
And I did that, and there were a ton of poor reviews.
Interesting.
So right away, even if it is all legit, you start questioning potential job stability, or, are they getting paid on time? Things of that nature. Anyways, I looked over the employment thing and I said, well, let's take a look at their credit, because, somebody's ability to pay doesn't necessarily correlate with their job, right? There's a lot of people that, they'll get 2 or 3 jobs if they have to pay their rent, right? Keep a roof over their head.
It's more about character.
When you have children, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I started looking at the credit report. It's an Equifax report. I'm very familiar with credit reports. I've been looking at them for the past 20 years of my life. And I personally pull my own Equifax report and my wife's a number of times per year, just to better understand where our credit is at. Is there anything that's on there that shouldn't be on there? You printed your own?
Yeah.
In fact, I used to subscribe to their monthly program that alerts you of new inquiries or what have you, any changes, and then they let you download as many credit reports as you want.
Yeah. They're big on that. That's their big thing now. They're trying to push all these, as is every company trying to push monthly memberships.
Monthly recurring, right? Everybody wants that. So I'm very, very familiar with it. And obviously in real estate handling leases, we see a lot of applications and a lot of reports, different kinds, from Equifax, TransUnion, Credit Karma.
Well, here's the big thing with that too, is I think half of those are so summarized, you don't get a very good indication as to what they're saying about somebody. Like Equifax is very detailed, assuming they print the right version of the report. But a lot of those other ones are very, like, you can't see all the trades, and they usually send you like a screenshot of the app on their phone. So you can't, it's all split up between 15 different photos. It's terrible.
Yeah, I don't know how people can't recognize how to download a damn PDF from the report.
Yeah.
Like it even says generate print report or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you save
it. To their credit, Equifax doesn't make it explicitly clear. Like they should just have a print report button. You do have to click a couple things to get to it. But nevertheless, it's not that hard.
Right.
It's not
because
super
they're trying
intuitive
to keep you
either.
They're trying to keep you on their site, right? So
yeah.
Anyways, I'm looking at this report, and the first thing that caught my eye was in the soft and hard inquiry area towards the bottom of the report, the spacing between the lines started to get significantly different between each other.
Right.
Now, again, I know the Equifax reports, they are lined up perfectly. There's, proper spacing. So if you were to go into a Word document and hit space, you get the same space. And these were not. So
well, let's also say this. So this particular report was a copy of the report. So it wasn't an original PDF. It was a scanned copy.
Correct. Yes, that's a good point. It was a scan.
The pages were a bit wonky.
Yes. And that can happen between scanning and emailing, especially if somebody has one of those scanners where it feeds through, depending on how it feeds. If you fed 2 pages at once, as an example, sometimes it can be skewed and whatever. So you have to take that with a bit of a grain of salt. But that was the first thing that set my eyes off, right? And then I looked at the actual alignment of all of the letters and the words and the sentences, and those were also not properly left aligned to the page. So when you look down from the first paragraph, second paragraph, first line, second line, it started to zigzag.
Yeah. Can you hear that? My printer's going. Somebody's sending something to the printer.
No.
Sorry. Anyways,
and then I further looked into it.
Yeah.
There were spelling errors. There were words that shouldn't have been there. You've seen the report, so like simple things like the word account, like a bank account, was changed, and it said count numbers.
Right.
Oh, what the hell's a count number?
Well, the interesting thing with this, though, is that, Equifax, well, how many pages? Let's see, mine's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mine's
between 8 and a dozen.
Mine's only 5.
Well, that's because you're a cheap bastard and you don't have a lot of credit.
You've got, in many cases, upwards of 10 pages, realistically. And 90% of the document is standardized text, right? So they're just paragraphs explaining what the next part is going to be. And most of these sections, the average person's not going to look at because they're the same thing from one document to the next. And this is where we found, or give you credit, you found a lot of the errors by being thorough and reading all those little parts.
Well, here's the thing. So their realtor did not know that was a fraudulent report, but it was a fraudulent report. And when I called them out on it, and I called the realtor up and I said, can they provide me a brand new report within the next 45 minutes?
Right.
And they were
at work. What did she say to that?
They were at work, and she said, well, I'll try, but I don't know if I can get it to you in 45 minutes. Why do you need it in 45 minutes? I don't understand. You have a report there. It's good. And I said, yeah, but the report is dated October 19th. It's mid-November, so it's outdated, and I want a live report. And I said, I have a reason to my madness. There is a reason I want it in a short time frame. And I'll be happy to disclose what that reason is later. And she said, okay, well, let me call him and I'll see. Sure enough, she couldn't get a hold of him. And I prefaced that whole conversation actually by asking, what is your lines of communication with this client? Like, if you call, will you be able to get an answer pretty quickly? Oh yeah. So, and no report came in 45 minutes, and I didn't want to give them enough time to,
fake another one.
Yeah. Because if you fake it once, you'll fake it again.
Yeah.
So anyways, I feel sorry for the realtor because, well, yes and no. The realtor got duped, right? When I called them out on it, the realtor said, well, they have good credit. Because I said, I think the document is forged. She said, well, they have good credit.
According to
I
what?
said, what do you mean they have good credit?
The forged document.
The document is forged. You have no idea what kind of credit these people have. And I'm pretty sure if they provide a fraudulent Equifax report, that probably the other documents are also forged, or their credit is so bad that you'll never even know. And giving the 4 months up front, you know what would happen. You know what would happen there. To those of you that don't, you would get that 10 grand up front and never see another nickel.
Absolutely.
Because it's almost impossible with people like that. They're professional tenants. Really 100%. Is what they are.
Not only are you not getting any more money, but they are going to destroy your property.
Oh, for sure.
100%.
Can you imagine a brand new $800,000 home, and they went to that extent to try and get the property, offering the 4 months up front? We've seen it before. We've heard the stories. They would move in, not pay you rent.
Yeah.
After a few months, because they didn't have to, you would try and collect. Oh, this changed, that changed, my job, I got fired. We'll pay you in 30 days or we'll pay you in 20 days. That time flies by, never collect payment. And then you're trying to chase them. Then you try and kick them out. You try and evict them. They don't want to leave.
It's a long process, especially right now with COVID. Like, good luck getting anybody out. It's a very
long process. They're probably a year behind now on those kind of evictions. So,
yeah.
And then they don't care about the property, right? Like, they have zero shits given about how the house looks once they leave, or while they're living in there, or whatever.
Well, and let's face it, like, sometimes if something seems too good to be true, it not always, but it may very well be. Like, if these people had perfect credit, which I think one of them was over 800, and they have enough money to give you 4 payments up front, so they got 10 grand. One would think that they maybe should buy a house. Right?
Not necessarily.
No, I know, but you know what I'm saying.
I won't even know, because you've contemplated it. If your wife was on side, you've contemplated selling and renting something in Milton, and then using that leverage, that equity, that money, that financing to go and buy multiple properties in other areas.
Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I'm just saying, the point I'm trying to convey is that if everything seems perfect.
Here's what's scary. And here's how stupid that they are. Like, you pay 4 months up front and you have over 800 beacon score on your credit report. Why not, if you're going to forge it, why not make it like 710 or something that's not, it's good, but not like my credit isn't even as high as them, and I have good credit. But they put something like 820 and 830 on credit scores. Like, I don't even know what the maximum is, but it's like 845 or something like that.
No, 900. So 900 is perfect.
900? Yeah. I've never seen anything that high, but
yeah.
Anyway, why not, forge it to something that's reasonable, and not give those payments up front? You might have a fighting chance,
or keep it in your back pocket as a negotiating tool, right?
Something. But so they actually helped me make that easy decision. Yeah. But the scary part is, Adrian, that somebody's going to accept them as a tenant. I guarantee it. Somebody is going to overlook it. They're going to say, "Oh, I'm getting 4 months up front. They have good credit. Yeah, their jobs are stable. They don't make a ton of money, but enough to pay the bills."
What came of it with their agent? Like, do you think that real estate agent's still working with them?
I don't know. I don't have time to follow up people's crap. I asked her to call me the next day. She didn't. I called and left a message. So either she's in on it, or nothing came of it. Right. The funny part about it was, she said that she was going to have her office pull the credit report because this
was after the fact.
kind of during the pro.
After you had asked for a new one, though.
Yeah. I didn't tell her we were going with the other offer just yet, even though I knew we were. We didn't sign it yet. And I was just curious. I was curious as to what she was going to come back with, and if another report was produced, what it actually said.
Yeah.
So she was going to have her office do it. She called me back several hours later and said, Equifax is down. Whatever, you can check it online. I didn't verify it or whatever, and it just kind of disappeared. So I don't know what came of it. But the fact of the matter is, folks, yeah, there's a ton of fraud out there. There's a ton of people that are trying to find a place to live and basically will do anything to get it. And there are a ton of people that are trying to get places to live that they cannot afford and that will not pay their rent.
Yeah. There's a lot of loopholes in the system, and there's a lot of people that know how to take advantage of those.
There are a lot of professional tenants, and they know that the Residential Tenancies Act favors tenants, not landlords.
Yeah.
And it does, it puts the onus on the realtor, because assuming you've hired a realtor to rent the property out, there are a ton of people that do it by themselves because they don't want to pay a realtor commission, which, we charge 1 month rent. Sometimes there's some add-on costs to it, but on average, it's going to cost you a month plus a little bit. Well, I don't know how much time the average person has, but between showings and going through documents and, how as an individual would you ever be able to decipher whether or not that tenant was a good tenant? Like, if everything checks out on paper, and I guarantee you, if I did reference checks, I guarantee you it'll all check out.
For sure, because they've set it all up.
They've set it all up. They've put their ducks in order.
Have you ever called a reference and they said, no, don't take this person on, stay away, don't touch them?
Interesting that you said that, because Steve Cicchetto and I had that conversation about when we used to hire employees in our previous careers. But so to answer your question, no, I've never had a bad reference, but I did have a reference that when I called, hesitated.
Right. That's a big sign.
It was the previous landlord. And I don't know if she felt
previous, as in they were occupying their rental currently?
No.
Okay.
No, previous to that.
Okay.
And when I made the call, it was clear that maybe she was intimidated or scared or something by the
interesting,
by the past tenant, and kind of just said, yeah, they lived here, and I can't really give you much information on it, and that was it. So kind of stayed neutral, but kind of hinted in the reaction at, well, you might not want to accept these people. And that was enough for me to say, hang on, if a landlord is, because if you've been a good tenant.
Oh, I would rave. I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. Especially because it's for an essential need. Like somebody needs somewhere to live. So
correct.
It's not like they're going to buy get an unnecessary luxurious toy that they need a reference for. It's for an essential need. So
Right. And if they treated you well as a tenant, like that tenant landlord relationship was good, then you want to help people out, right? Hey, you treated my home well. You pay me on time. Yeah, I'll give you a great recommendation. So
Right.
just have your next potential landlord call me. And then I've had, quote unquote, landlord references where, okay, so Mr. Smith submits an application to rent one of our properties. And on the rental application says, you taking a screenshot or a picture? There you go. So Mr. Smith submits an application to rent one of our properties and puts, Mike Jones as a personal reference as a past landlord. And
these are fictional characters, by the way, if your name is Mike Jones.
Yeah, we might have a couple of those in our database. Is that what you're saying? That
I think we do. Yeah.
Now you got me sidetracked. What was I going to say?
I have no idea. You didn't get far enough in.
So you call Mike Jones and you said, I got a rental application here from, Mr. Smith. And he mentioned that you're a past landlord, wanted to get your feedback and opinion on him as a tenant. Oh, yeah, it was great. And blah, 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 blah. And what, I always confirm what address was the property, does it line up with the rental application? But then I think these people forget that we have access to the land registry system.
Right.
So I've had it before where I called Mr. Mike Jones that said he owned 123 Anywhere Street. And I go into the land registry and check 123 Anywhere Street, and it's owned by Dorothy Goodsmith.
Right.
Right.
Again, Dorothy Goodsmith is a fictional character.
Well, so is 123 Anywhere Street.
Did I just say fictional?
I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, do you have anything to say?
No, I think that's, there's a lot of neat little things that we can do or that we do in our process of trying to vet and qualify tenants. And so that's a great idea in terms of following up with references. And I think references in themselves they don't provide a lot of value if you don't know how.
Who's going to give you a reference for somebody that's going to talk shit about you?
Right. So references don't provide any value if you don't know how to use a reference. But if you know how to use a reference, and you know what to look for, such as trying to catch somebody hesitating before they answer, or finding out what the property was that they previously rented, and this is the previous landlord, whatever, and then confirming that they owned it. Those are effective ways of using references. But what most people do, I suspect, is they'll call the reference and say, hey, this is Adrian from Century 21 Miller. I have a tenant applying to rent X property. They have you as a reference. Can you tell me about them? The person is just going to say, yep, they were tenants. They were good people. End of story. And if you just take it at that.
I'm like, I always throw these random questions that potentially can throw people off, right? I'd be like, and can you tell me how many bedrooms and bathrooms are in that property?
Yeah.
3 bedroom, 2.5 bath. Oh, really? Okay. Because
my lighting totally just changed. Oh, it's weird. My camera is so sensitive.
Well, it's focusing on different parts.
Yeah.
Nobody listening cares about your lighting.
Well, it just threw me off for a second. But no, that's funny. I haven't tried that. I'm going to do that more often. Just ask random questions about the property.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
I just want to verify that it's the correct property. Can you tell me what color the kitchen cabinets are?
Yeah. Or just give them a random address, right? Just give them a random address and say, was this at this particular address? Just some weird street name.
Oh, not confirming the actual address, you mean?
Yeah. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's the one. Yep, I've owned that for a long time.
So here it is, folks. I mean, if you're a landlord, it's it's tough sledding out there right now as it is. Tough to find good quality tenants.
Tough to find tenants, period, especially like in Toronto right now. It's really tough. So don't get desperate. Make sure you do your due diligence. Don't just say, oh my God, this is the first application I've had.
I don't know what the terminology is for tenants that are foraging and doing those things, if you want to call them professional tenants or sharks or whatever, but I guarantee you there are applications right now on the table for a ton of properties in Toronto, specifically condos, because there's a shit ton of them on the market. And there are applications that are being reviewed right now that have a ton of fraudulent content within it. So be careful. Be careful. I don't understand, it just blows my mind how a landlord wouldn't hire a realtor to rent out their property. But it blows my mind how many realtors are out there that don't do the proper due diligence.
Here's the thing with rentals, the month's rent, it really, half of that goes to the other party, whoever's representing the tenants or the land, whatever. There's not much money in it for the real estate agent. And
it is a loss leader for us. I've done the math many times. I've told 100%. You this. So if we put any kind of value at all, like even $20 an hour into our value, and where our value is significantly more than $20 an hour, but let's just say $20 an hour. By the time the property is actually tenanted, like you've exchanged keys, we have lost a significant amount of money on that transaction.
Easy. 100% every time. If
you don't monetize your time, it's still probably a loss leader. You try and, as a realtor, you try and help people, right? You try and help
at the end of the day, from a real estate, from our business perspective, it's adding a new client to our database. And that's what it's all about, is having more people.
Yes.
But so what I was getting at with that, though, is that a lot, because it's perceived as a loss leader, a lot of agents will spend little to no time on it, right? So
correct.
That's why the agent that brought you that offer had no idea it was fake. She didn't look. She just send me your documents. Send me your documents. I'll email them in. She didn't even look at them. She looked at the score. She saw the score at the top of the page. That was it.
100%.
So
100%.
On the receiving end, you have to be diligent. You have to be thorough. Can you imagine like people complaining about one month's rent to pay to hire an agent? Imagine 6 months of no rental income and shitty tenants that destroy your property.
Not to say that it can't happen, that if you hire an agent and even take their advice and meet the tenants before they move in before you sign off and all that, it can still happen. And even if you have a good tenant, something can happen that they become a bad tenant later. There's been cases where somebody has an addiction and you don't find out until later and until it becomes a problem, or somebody loses their job or somebody gets sick. So tons of things can happen there. That's the risk of being a landlord, but you're trying to mitigate that risk as best as you can.
Yes.
So anyways, I wanted to talk about that a little bit because it infuriated me that what I was looking at, like 2 completely fraudulent reports. The person representing them, the realtor, had no idea.
What you should have done? You should have, even though you weren't accepting it, you should have met with them. 100. You should have done that. You should have met with them and then not called them out on it directly.
Well,
but
first of all, I thought about it, but I value my time. My time is way too valuable to be wasting time with people like that. Secondly, I don't know who these people are. Like, are they that now? I've called them out at being frauds. Do they now, hunt me down and fucking find me? And I'm serious, right? Like
you watch too many movies.
I'm sorry. You Google my name, you'll be able to track me down pretty easily, right? I'm not Mike Smith. like one of a kind name. There's no other Ariel Cormendi in the world. So
I'm going to challenge that. If your name is Ariel Cormendi, I want you to DM me today.
Well,
I'm going to have you on the show next week.
Highly doubt my doppelganger is watching the show, but or listening. But seriously, like, I don't know who these people are. Like, if they have any ties with, I don't know, mafia, or you never know.
Oh my God, you're funny. I suppose you don't know, but it's a far stretch.
There's a lot of crazy people in this world, man. I pull up into my driveway one day and here are these people waiting to ask me why I didn't accept them as a tenant and called them out as a fraud, right? You never know.
I'm going to buy you
to find somebody's home address.
I'm going to buy you a handgun for Christmas.
I already have one.
Bodyguard, full-time bodyguard.
It's not legal in Canada. You can have a shotgun as long as it's registered.
So I'm gonna just wrap this up. We're gonna link a blog in the description, so you can actually go in. We have included screenshots of specific.
This is fun. This is fun. Getting to share this.
We've included screenshots of specific components of the credit report that were wrong, and we've highlighted what was wrong with it. So it's really interesting to see. The pictures make it more or less blatantly obvious, but when you're reading through, a 12-page document with thousands of words, it wasn't so blatantly obvious, but it's interesting to see where they messed up.
Before I forget, so I'm a member of a
gun club, shooting range.
We'll call it. I used to be. A Facebook group for realtors, and not that long ago. This actually just came to my mind. Not that long ago, one of the realtors in there posted a picture of a driver's license and found out it was fraudulent.
Okay.
And everybody's commenting on it. And a lot of people couldn't identify that it was fraudulent. So there's a lot of good fakes out there too. Like right now, with Adobe Acrobat Pro, you can do some serious damage with altering PDFs if you know how to use it properly.
Yeah.
Right? So...
Well, and people that aren't computer literate, there are people that you can pay to do this. And it's not hard to find these people.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like all these companies. I won't mention any names, but there are some, companies in every industry, we'll leave it at that, that actually pay people to leave reviews, like 5-star Google reviews or whatever. That's why I know you want us to get a bad review one of these days, because we do have a perfect 5-star Google and Facebook review.
I'm going to go on and leave a bad review. I'm going to pay
somebody to leave us a shit review. Yeah. How about that?
I'm going to go leave a bad review and I'm going to name you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. The good news is Google does a lot of checks and verifications on all that stuff, and everybody that's left us a review obviously is legit and whatnot. But they're like, you can hop onto Fiverr and for $5 to $10 get somebody to leave you a review on your business. You can pay people like that to doctor in a credit report or a job letter, or to be a reference, or to confirm employment, or any of those.
I'll tell you what, if somebody wanted, I could make a fake one of these up and you would have no idea. When I was done with it, I'm confident you'd have no idea it was fake.
Well, you just said you pulled your own report. How long ago did you do that?
I did it for the purpose of this blog that I wrote, because I wanted to screen capture stuff.
How's your credit? Oh,
I'm really good.
You don't really spend any money.
No, I don't. Yeah, I'm way up there.
High 8s? Are you in the high 8s?
No, I'm not high. I'm 833.
That's good. That's a damn good score.
But that can change on a dime. You go get one loan, and for a year you're down to 770 because you had your credit checked, right?
Yep. Or you close an account, as an example. Yeah. That can also affect it. Anything can affect it. But if you're over 800, you're gold. Yeah.
Actually, on that note, before we wrap up, I'm just curious, is there a number for you if you're representing the landlord and you get a credit report? Is there a score where you would immediately just deny somebody, or it would just
No.
say, nope, you're open-minded to bad scores as well?
Yeah. The score specifically will not deter me.
Okay. So people out there that are discouraged because they have low credit scores should not be discouraged, is what you're saying.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Unless your story is shit, right? Like if you come to us with a 530 credit score and you say, I just declared bankruptcy a year ago, and in the last year you've been sitting on your sofa eating fucking Cheetos and watching Seinfeld, then we might have a problem.
Right.
But if you come to me and you say, I just declared bankruptcy during COVID, I was going through cancer treatments and COVID hit at the same time, and I'm really in a tough place, but I do have still $25,000 in my bank account. I've just landed this new job, which is going to get me back on my feet. I'm just looking for somebody to give me an opportunity. That's a very, very different standpoint, right?
Yeah.
And both, I guarantee you, both examples exist in the rental market today.
Yeah, 100%. But I think the key there for those people is they need proper representation, because I'll get a lot of phone calls from agents saying,
"Hey, would you consider?" Across from Steve Chiquetto's in the other room. Okay, yeah. He helped brand new immigrants to the country with no credit, not shit credit, zero credit. Like you just landed fresh off the boat and don't have a cent lent to you by a lender, and just a few $1,000 in their pocket. And he was able to get them a rental property here in Milton because
he's damn good at his job.
That's right. But he encouraged the landlord to meet, and because he felt that those people were good people and they needed an opportunity, he did his proper due diligence. And, most landlords would have just passed on them. But
I remember one time I was able to help get a church rental of a house where they were going to have 12 people in the house. That was
12 students.
12 students. That was a challenge, but we persevered and we found a house, and they were the most amazing tenants, and they paid huge money to make it happen. And, I think a lot of agents would have passed on that. So for the landlord, they scored. For the tenants, they scored because it was they couldn't find a place. Then they came to us.
I remember that transaction. We certainly didn't score because I think between the two of us, we spent 200 hours on that file.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, but and they turned out to be great people, really good customers, clients for life for sure. So don't give up. Just get proper representation.
And, get the whole story too, right? Like there's...
Yeah. Well, it's even when we're selling houses. If you're representing a buyer, you got to sell them to me.
That's right. Got to make sure that the deal's gonna close, right?
More so when you're leasing, because it's not so much about the price.
Thanks for listening to episode 106. Please make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, and like wherever you're listening or watching. If you are listening and you want to watch, go to ktconfidential.ca. It'll take you right to the KT Confidential podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.